Is that me? I'm on. Love it. Love hearing my voice loud like that. Um, Hi, everybody, and welcome. Welcome here. I'm so delighted to be here at Backyard at Bloss. My name is Dee Laffin. I'm a food journalist with Irish Country Living in the Farmers Journal, and I'm also the co-founder and editor of Scoop Food Magazine, which is a annual food magazine that tells the stories of Irish food. I'm delighted to be here to host this talk. I think we're going to have a great talk about the importance of taste. And I'm joined by Trudy, Laura, and Anthony, who I'm going to get to introduce themselves to you now. But we're hoping to have a discussion about that because we all, I suppose, have work with producers in very different ways. And work with taste in very different ways. So please do participate in the talk because we want your comments and questions. But yeah, we'll be kicking it off. But first of all, let's do introductions. I was going to introduce you guys, but I feel like it's always good to get you to introduce yourself. So Anthony, as your closest, you get to go first. Lucky you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I am, and I do a lot of things in the food and drink industry. Even the people who are close to me always ask, Anthony, what are you doing? So my background is I'm a chef, and my day-to-day now is I'm an international food and drink and travel advisor. So I specialize in connecting producers, chefs, hoteliers, civil partners, tourism, and bringing it all together and make sure that they're telling the story. And I'm very active in a lot of communities. Like Bloss, I'm part of Orthodox Ireland. I was the head of the Food Council there. I'm part of Slow Food. I'm part of the International Culinary of Associated Professionals. I worked with Wexford Food Family, which Trudy will talk about. I'm a co-founder of the Irish Food Champions Assembly and Taste Wexford. So I'm always part of a lot, and I believe in what producers are doing and chefs are doing, in the importance of taste and our Irish story, which is quite important.
So not busy then?
Not busy, no.
That's good. And Laura, we'll go to you next. Please introduce yourself.
Hi everybody. I'm Laura from Indie Food. So me and my business partner Johnny own a food company, obviously called Indie Food. We're all about local produce, so just anything from the island of Ireland, everything from cheese and chocolate to charcuterie, coffee, just anything that you can produce in Ireland or kind of bring in and kind of make something special. And we showcase, and we work really closely with the producers because that's what we really care about. It's the ethos of the company. It's about supporting people as they grow, as they start, and then kind of through to hopefully being really successful and working alongside them.
But you yourselves were awarded a Bloss Award in 2022, the Bloss Champion Award, wasn't it? Champions of Producers. So
yeah,
just
the
highlights.
Producer Champion.
Yeah, just
last year, which is great. We were really delighted with that, and just because you're nominated by the producers, so it's something that just kind of acknowledges that you're working with everybody and that they appreciate kind of what you've done. And that was we were really chuffed.
Amazing. And Trudy, tell us a bit about yourself.
I'm Trudy, and I started Trudy's Kitchen 23 years ago. I had 3 small children, 1, 4 and 6, who are now 30, 28 and 24. And we produce handmade salads, sandwiches and ciabattas. What started out as a very small business at the back of the house has grown organically due to flavour, taste, support from the retailers. So we now employ 20 people, and we have 4 vans on the road, and we use some of the nationwide distributions with our friends Cologne Farm. We piggyback on their pallet each evening going to some of the national retailers. So what started out as just a passion for food and feeding people and enjoying food and everything about food led to a business that has exceeded all expectations. And today we won a silver award for a new product that we're just going to launch. It's a rainbow vegan coleslaw. So we're delighted.
Amazing. Well, that deserves a round of applause.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Amazing. It's actually so nice to be here. You always, I don't know, it's not like we forget, but standing in the room, hearing the awards being called out and just how much it means to everybody, or knowing that you're part of that process is just such a lovely feeling. And regardless of bronze, silver or gold, I think it's just such an amazing achievement. So congratulations.
Thank you.
As we were saying, we're here to talk about the importance of taste. And I suppose where we're coming from with that is that we, myself and Anthony and Laura, judges of Bloss, and have been for, I think I've been doing it over 10 years. And each year, you know, with Bloss, it's so unique because it's blind tasting, and you're really tasting a product based on literally its quality, its appearance, its texture, you know, consumer appeal. They're the categories, the flavor, obviously, aroma, things like that. You're just presented with this blank canvas in some ways, and you have to not compare it to anything else. You have to try and give an objective point of view on that product in that moment. And I think it's such a big responsibility for us, and but such a pleasure to do. And over the years, you sit in the room with people, and you're not allowed to talk to each other about, you know, the product, obviously, that you're judging and commenting on. But afterwards, we chat about products that really stood out, really made our taste buds like, you know, zing and in all the right ways. For the judges, first of all, just to talk about that, how do you find the whole judging experience in terms of when it comes to tasting a product, and how do you go about that yourself? Is there any kind of experiences that you can talk about, Anthony, first of all?
So first of all, for me, because I'm trained in product development, it's very hard for me to live my personal tastes and likes at the door when you're tasting, particularly when you come to Bloss, because you have to be impartial in what you're tasting.
Yeah.
And the amount of effort that's gone into something that's been put in front of you, and it's a product on a white piece of, you know, plate or in a bowl or a cup, and you have to taste it. So you have to appreciate, you know, the senses, and you have to start looking at it and analyze it. And I love doing that because it kind of resets me as someone who's constantly on the road, looking what everyone's doing, is where we are now in the Irish food, what the trends are coming up, and why. Like Ireland, we are so lucky to have a multicultural diversity of people here, and the passion behind it and the quality of ingredients that we can have. So tasting those things, it's just pretty amazing. And particularly when you're tasting on your own and you're thinking and you're going, that memory trigger as well. And you can't say anything to anyone, but that afterwards is really when we talk, and we're you know, that interaction of going, what was that flavor, and why. It's really, really unique.
Yeah. And Laura, if you're constantly tasting products, you're, you know, like looking at them for your marketplace, for your shop, and from that perspective, you're meeting and talking to producers all the time. Do you find that then, if you're judging a product, is it easy, like Anthony said? Do you find it hard to leave that at the door? Do you recognize products? Like, what is the judging process like for you?
It's similar to Anthony. Like, it is an interesting experience. So if you're judging something that wouldn't be like your personal favorite category, still like judging it as it's something we have to do, as you say, on a daily basis in the store, is judging it as a good example of what it is. I think is what you have to kind of always remember, whether you're tasting a product that's been brought to your shop or tasting as part of Blast. You know, you've got to be tasting it as a good example of what it is, not whether it's something you personally want in your cupboard. Yeah. Because you don't necessarily represent the majority of your marketplace. Yeah. Particularly as somebody who's tasting all the time, you end up with quite sophisticated taste usually. Yeah. And that doesn't necessarily reflect people who are coming in the door of your shop or a restaurant or something, which is always, I think, really important and can be a little bit tricky, particularly when you're starting out, to sort of realize that, you know, your tastes aren't all that important. It's more kind of what other people's are.
Definitely. And I think part of the judging process as well is that, as I was saying, the different categories are taste flavor, you know, and aroma, and then appearance and texture and quality. And they're obviously really important, but consumer appeal is something that we judge on as well. And that can be a really, like, you know, that can be where innovation comes in, because it could be that a producer has tried something with new flavors or a new product, and you're like, I don't like this product. I know it's made really well. It's great quality. It tastes great. But I also know that consumers are going to love this, even though I don't. Or it could be that maybe, you know, this could have been made a little bit better. There's a bit of work to be done here. So you might market a bit less, but you're also, the consumer appeal could be, but actually, if they get this right, this is going to be a fantastic product. Like, the appeal is there. And I find that one is often a really interesting thing to judge. Trudy, for you as producing products, like, do you find feedback really helpful? And like, for that process of when you're creating food, to get that feedback from people within the industry? Is that really important to you?
It's so important, and I'm actually here today as well as chairperson of the Wexford Food Family.
Yes.
And if you visit our stand, there's 14 producers that have become finalists today, and there's an awful lot of gold, silver and bronze coming back to Wexford. So we have our products displayed out on the fridges in ambient, but we would have done a lot with Anthony over the last year or so, where he's done grazing tables in the field or in heritage sites like Johnstown Castle. And on those days, you're able to hear the feedback about us collectively, individually, for breakfast, for lunch, all the different offerings that we do as producers. And we feel that when we do the tastings that we learn so much more about our business, our process, what people expect, the current trends, the tastes. Simple thing, I was doing tastings about 10 years ago, and I had an egg salad product, and everyone I asked, would you like to taste, and say, is it free range? Is it free range eggs? And I was like, no, they were Irish eggs that were pre-boiled for me. And following that tasting, we then went out and invested €42,000 extra per year for our eggs to be free range in all of our salads.
Because that's what everyone was asking you for.
For free range, and that's what people wanted, and that's what we had to rise to, literally with the costings and how we went about our business. And that was a major decision to change to free range in all of our salads and our sandwiches.
Yeah. Obviously, it's a huge consideration if you talk about, I suppose, sampling, that kind of, when you're developing a product, or for a producer, when you have developed it yourself and gone through a process and it's at a point where you want people to taste it, sampling is obviously the best way to get that, feedback straight away from customers, getting to talk to them. Anthony, you've worked in product development. You've said, how soon in the process do you suggest to producers to do sampling? Is it when they're for market research, or is it once they're further along?
I would do it every step of the way. There's producers who I admire every time I'm out in an event here. There's always some producers who'll have something in the car, they'll have something in their bag. Will you taste it? What do you think? Or a bloom or a taste. And you have to constantly, if you have something, and it's only a raw product, and you have something to add to it, or the next stage, you tell that person, and just to get the feedback, so you can move on, and it's getting that confidence too, because it's, first of all, it's the time that you have to put into designing a new product before you even look at any packaging or how you're going to bring it to market. You might have something and you're trying it out, or lots of products come as a mistake. And giving it to people to taste, because it gives you the confidence to move forward.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love when I go to a place and they're like, Anthony, hold on, I have something there. Will you taste it? And I'm like, that's amazing. And they want the instant reaction. They want to see your face, because sending it to you in the post or anything, they don't get that instant, it's the instant, it's the reaction when you see that body language going. They know there's something wrong with it before even I say it, because it's hard to not to show it. Or when they see it and I'm like, that is amazing, it is really, really good. So for any producer, I would always say to them, bring something with you if it's not ready 100%. And things will never be 100% either. So bring it along, try it. Other producers, that's another aspect. Go to people and work together. A lot of producers are very afraid of that, because they don't think their product is, even if it's on the shelf, is still not at that level that they should be. And I'm like, it's amazing. If it's here today, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
If you've gone through and there's so many people, even people who didn't win an award, to be here, it's absolutely amazing.
Definitely, yeah. It's and the highest number of entries again this year, thousands of products, and to make it into the finalist hall there, it's just incredible. Laura, for you in Indie Food, do people send products to you to test, to try out and look for feedback? Is that common?
Yeah, it is. It's more and more common. I suppose, if anything, the longer you're in the business, the more people know you, or the more people you meet out on the road at something like Blast, so they know you and they kind of are a little bit interested in what you might think.
Yeah.
And so we do get a lot of samples, or a lot of people calling in, and it's really nice to be in a journey from the very beginning.
Yeah.
It's really nice to have somebody kind of pop into the shop or send you a text or give you a call and be like, "Look, are you about tomorrow? Kind of pop in. I've given something a try. It might be bloody awful, but like I really want to know." And you can sort of have a chat to them, even if it is not great, but the idea is really good and there's something to work on. It's a real privilege. It's lovely
Yeah.
to
It
be
is.
trying products and have people caring about kind of what your opinion is and where
Yeah.
it might go in the market. So it's definitely, don't be afraid, as Anthony says, like getting people to taste it, particularly once
Yeah.
you know if somebody has, they've been doing it for a while, their opinion might have a little
Yeah.
bit of weight to it. Like they might have some valuable feedback. They maybe know
Yeah.
the market a little bit, because you can get really, particularly as a small artisan producer, you can get really sort of a wee bit insular. You're trying it. You might be trying it every few days, and it's very different for you than somebody else trying it. So it's
Yeah.
good to get out there, and
Do you-
we're all pretty approachable. Like we're nice people.
Do you give feedback though to like?
Absolutely, yeah.
And do you give bad feedback as well?
Yeah, less and less. There's more and more products, I think.
That are good.
Yeah, and particularly in Northern Ireland, we've been a little bit kind of slower to have as big a
Yeah.
network of producers, but they're definitely now coming to you ready for market a lot more often.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really outstanding products where people are still going, "Will you try it? Like, what do you think?" And you're like, "It's great."
Yeah.
Like get your branding done, get it out there. It's a really good product.
Yeah.
But equally, there is sometimes where you've got to be like this. It's not right. There's something amiss, or even that the branding, the product's really great, but that packaging,
Story
people
or-
aren't
yeah.
going to pick it up. Like, what is
Yeah.
it? Doesn't tell us anything about you, which is quite important. So yeah, it is. There's always something to say on a product.
Yeah. Trudy, how do you deal with bad feedback, or have you ever received any, or would you be worried about that as well in terms of like, are you happy knowing giving out samples and all that you accept that comes with it?
We do a lot of sampling and taste panels. They can be as simple as family and friends. It can be given out into the local athletic clubs,
Yeah.
into the gyms.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Right up to the support from Borbia. Borbia did super brands with Trudy's Kitchen, and our product sent out to a taste panel and through all the different age groups and that. So you don't have to go and do a big major spend on it. You can bring in your locality and supports that way. And every year when it comes around to the Borbia MAC grant application, I would always put in an allowance for tastings, and either send it out to a group for tasting, or
Yeah.
or for just doing tastings at big events like this, and you bring a lot of product with you, and you get an honest feedback then, and for everyone to know that there is an application process there to Borbia every year to support tastings. And what we find as well, that with Wexford Food Family, we're doing a lot of collaboration. So Cologne have launched the most beautiful cream cheese at the moment. So that would have been used at the Rock and Food Festival with the Isle of Crackers, and everyone is partnering up. Like I use Wexford Preserves for red onion relish in my sandwiches, and we find then that if we're able to use each other's products, then we're getting a bigger database of customers, because people would love the red onion relish from Wexford Preserves, and when that's matched up with a sandwich or with the goat's cheese or from Meadowfield in Wexford as well. So we find that working together and pulling together and sampling, go to a show and try a bit and have a bit and take a few home with you and see how it goes. So I would use a lot of the clubs in the locality, and I'd say, look, try it, let me know what you think.
Yeah.
And same with the schools. The schools are brilliant. They're so honest.
Yeah,
You go into a class of TY students and it's yuck. I wouldn't eat that. I don't eat coleslaw or whatever. And they're so honest.
Yeah.
They're the best people.
Yeah.
But
that's it. You want that feedback, don't you? Because you're like, okay, well, how could I make this teenager want to eat this coleslaw? And sort
Put
of
sweet chilli in it.
sweet chili. There's the secret.
Once you put sweet chilli in it, all the students will eat it.
That's amazing. And because I was going to ask, actually, and you brought up something there, is about collaborating and taste collaborations, even knowing, because I say, as a food producer, you're a food producer, you might know your product, but you might not know what your product goes best with. And I often find that it's sometimes the best products are, they do so well because they find a match with something else. And it's, in those collaborations that, because the two flavors together, like that crackers with cheese or something, Anthony, have you found that that? Would you advise that to producers, that sometimes to develop the taste of their product, to try and match it with something else or collaborate or kind of, create recipes where you're creating these flavor combinations.
Of course, yeah. Like the first person who understands your product inside out is the person who's making the producer. So getting that, a recipe from you, what you do at home, and they're doing it naturally.
Yeah.
I worked with a lot of producers, particularly in Wexford, and they were doing it, and I'm like, just bring it to the tasting, bring it to the festival, and they're like, are you sure? And they think it's so bog standard because they're doing it at home. It's like, that's going to work, having the cheese with the crackers, or bringing in some local tomatoes or a dressing, or drinks. There's drinks are exploding around Ireland, particularly the non-alcoholic. And doing, having like a poacher's tonic with a natural cordial added into it, or Kate, who's a producer champion this year, created a really amazing drink using some of the drinks from the award winners, and that's brilliant. And I guarantee you, those 3 producers that Kate's on, they will now bring that around and work together.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's brilliant. And it's another USP of adding to your story. And it doesn't have, yes, I would look at what's around you, but sometimes if you might look at someone on twinning in another county, or like Northern Ireland is exploding with amazing food and drink. Like, it's absolutely fantastic going up there. So definitely, and try things. Things might not work, but you want people to talk about the product. So if they don't like it, you ask them why, and they'll say it, but they'll go around and talk about it.
Yeah.
Publicity, good, bad, people, it's really, really good. And like when you say, feedback, there's never bad feedback. It's always look for constructive feedback from anyone. Ask them why. Why did they not like it? And if they don't like it because they just don't like, then you're like, okay, forget about it because they're not your customer.
Your audience.
But I love what Trudy said, particularly, the younger generation, they are our next customers, going to them and seeing why with the, putting the sweet chili in the coleslaw. It might not be for me, but that's what they like and they love it. And why? Because the flavors, look at the categories are here, and you can see the international flavors that are coming into products like coleslaw. They love that, and if it's a really good, why not?
Yeah, I was actually at the ploughing championships last week with the Farmers Journal, and they're like, it's, anyone would say, I don't know, hands up, has anyone been to the ploughing championships here? Or a few people, woohoo. It's a free for all for samples. Just going to say, it must be a hard thing as a producer to navigate whether to do that or not, and the kind of cost with that, because people who go there, they want stuff for free, and from an industry perspective, we all understand that, and it works both ways. But I'd say one thing: there was a queue, in particular outside the Aldi pavilion, because they had loads of producers inside there, and they were all given free samples. And I spoke with some of the producers. I was like, are you getting on okay? Like, because all the kids were queuing for hours because the weather was bad as well. But to get in, out of the cold and out of the muck and in and get the free samples. But I spoke with some of the producers, and they were like, yeah, but for us, we're trying new products, we're trying new flavors. And if those teenagers that are just here for free food are coming back to us for more, or if they're going, oh God, no, like, we're getting that feedback as well. But I suppose, so I have 2 questions there. And I'm not sure which one of you wants to take it, but for something, when it comes to sampling like that, like, we know it's the best feedback because it's imminent, it's right there, it's immediate. But how do you know where to sample at, what festivals to do, or how do you advise producers on that? And then the cost involved in sampling. Like, obviously it is a good thing to do, but how do you know? Does anyone want to take that? Or
well, I'll just say I was down in WIT, which is now university status, so I was invited down to do a 2-day tasting of our ciabattas, our pasta, our sandwiches that are now stocked in the shops in WIT.
Yeah.
And so there was 2,500 students, and I was there from 10 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock. And they're the future of Trudy's Kitchen, because what they tasted that day, they're already buying it now. They're requesting it. We want what we got in the hall that day. That was a free sample. A couple of the students asked me, was I going to be there every day? And I was like, you've got to be joking. It cost us €1,000 for the 2-day tasting.
Yeah.
And it was a big investment from us. And already we're starting to see the reward for it, because we did the toasted ciabattas and they got familiar with pesto and sun-dried tomatoes and the chicken and the cheese all melted together, and they couldn't believe it. And when I was taking them and cutting them, they were only eating a quarter. So they're done in slices, and they were like, we could actually share this between two. So then they're actually looking at their budget. What are they going to pay for it in the restaurant? And making a decision that we could get a ciabatta and a pasta and share.
Yeah.
And there was enough in it to share. So it was education, it was the taste panel, it was great feedback. I really enjoyed it because I got out there. I never went to college, so that was my nearest thing to an induction in college. So the 2 days down in WIT. And just to see that these are the future people that are going to be shopping for themselves, for their families, for the future.
Yeah.
And they recognise the brand down there. So I believe in tastings. I believe in getting out there, getting in front of the person, talking to them. They love to hear our story as well. Like, I fell into this business literally organically, and I grew it, and it's who we are today. I got an email this morning saying that my Origin Green is not standard anymore. We got gold, and then we got the award today.
Yeah, that's
so
brilliant.
this is just
another amazing
and like
achievement.
this is just me. I was a shop assistant for 13 years, and I started a business at the back of the house.
Yeah.
And that's where I've grown it to. And my son is now going to come forward and take it over. The girls were very clever. They went to college, and one's a teacher and the other one's an assistant planner.
Brilliant.
So look at, but it's all on the taste. I wouldn't be in business today if I didn't have tasty food.
Yeah.
We would be gone.
Yeah, of course. And my second question was kind of about moving around the country, around the island in terms of festivals. Like, you know, regionality. I love in Ireland that you can see regionality, like hyper local. Everyone, like a lot of chefs would be like, oh, local is the whole island of Ireland because it's so small. And you're like, yeah, that's great. And it is great, but that Ireland is small and we can, you know, really connect together. And you can have products from Northern Ireland on your menu, whether you're down in Kerry or whatever. But at the same time, I love that, like, you know, when you go to France, you go to Spain, there's like regionality. There's different parts of the country that are known for different things. And we have that here. But I think that is now at that tipping point of really, really exploding. And that has to do with networks like yourselves in Wexford and in Northern Ireland and everywhere, where there's these like different networks that are joining together to promote locally. But when you're sampling, like, at what point do you know that, like, is it good to try and see if your product is, or if you're thinking about going to a festival but it's in Dublin or it's down here in Dingle or somewhere else, like, is that good to try a different region rather than just your local? Maybe Anthony, I don't know if you take that or...
Yes.
It's like, you know, I know that comes down to where your customer base is, but...
It's down to your customer base and where your product's available.
From a taste perspective, because presumably taste does change around the country.
Oh, it would.
We all taste food.
Particularly if you're going at it who might not know what your product is, so you want to get a complete, I don't know, a shock reaction maybe or something, and people are tasting going, oh, I did not know who you are, let alone, you know, a new product. It's really, really good. Like, I see, you know, Siobhan from St. Ola there, you know, constantly around Ireland all the time, and it's really, really, you know, good to get out of your comfort zone, and support other networks as well.
Yeah.
Because it's that collaboration and partnership that happens from it. Like Trudy is very modest, but like she's brilliant in what she does for years, not just, you know, managing her own company, but supporting others.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that, you know, Cologne and Wexford Home Preserves and Trudy, there's that support, if it's in flavour or procurement or transport or going to festivals and events that, you know, Trudy would go there, but you can't afford it as a business. But Trudy's like, oh, I'll give you a bit of mine. And then next, you know, it goes to your question, you can't go to everything.
Yeah.
So you need to kind of sit down at the, you know, now for next year and figuring out what you want to do. If it's, you know, if it's about marketing, if it's about research, or is it about sales? And then who's your customer? And, you know, where you want to grow your customer as well. So if you have a new product coming up, you need to be thinking about now, you know, even just trying it out. If you are going to go into one of the multiples, you know, you need to go out and see, get that reaction and tell people it's going to go on the shelf in 2 months' time so they're ready for it.
Sure.
Because if you can't, you know, I know producers are producers, but they really need to be thinking ahead. You know, everyone, we're talking about Christmas earlier with a few people here, and I'm like, I'm looking at Easter for what I'm doing, or even Christmas next year. You constantly need, and like one of the things what I do with producers is pushing them or identifying the going, you need to go there.
Yeah.
And they would know if I say that, they'll drop a hat and go, and there's a reason why.
And Laura, for you as well, like Northern Ireland, like it's just has its own vibe and taste as well in terms of food more than the country itself. Like, would you advise producers to try and do different festivals around the island or the UK as well, or
think
like
it
when it
really-
comes to sampling, or do you try to say stick local more?
Yeah, it
so?
kind of depends on the product. I think a
Yeah.
lot of this talk of festival tastings are for really big brands. You know, when we're still looking, particularly in our store, artisan producers,
Yeah.
they don't really want to be going to a big festival.
Yeah.
They need to see the value in coming into one of their local shops and the kind of places that are, you know, stocking them and supporting them and coming down for the day, and the difference that will make in sales to what happens in that shop.
Yeah.
Because if we have somebody join us for the day, the uplift obviously in their sales that day, but then in the future, because everybody's met them, they've heard their story directly from them, and they feel invested in the product. And I think those kind of tastings don't really cost the company very much. You know, they don't cost you much as a small producer, apart from maybe your time, but it makes a really big difference to the sales in that deli and, you know, directly to you and the ongoing relationship.
Yeah.
We have a few of our producers in here, like Sean and Graham and David was here earlier on, and Sean will come all the way from County Clare and do a tasting in our Ormo shop, and we see a huge difference then, not only in how much the staff love him and love the product and want to talk
Yeah.
about it all the time, but then in people coming back and saying like, "Oh, I never would have chosen a sheep's cheese, but I tried it, and oh, that fella was lovely who makes it, and I'm going to buy that every time I have
Yeah.
a cheese
Yeah.
board now." So those small tastings, it's great to have big thinking and go and do some of the big festivals and big tastings if you have the budget and the product. You know, if
Yeah.
that is your aim, that's great. But I think, you know, you need to look at the lower levels first and be doing kind of small tastings, your local markets, and supporting kind of them and going out there in your local area first.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of this like trying to like run before you've kind of really got your feet on the ground and established,
Definitely.
you know, what's close by and what's easier.
Yeah.
It's kind of a first thing to be looking at, I think.
Definitely. And I'll just say something on media as well and tasting with the media, and then we might take some questions. But like, I'm a food journalist and I get sent a lot of things, products to try. And I'll just say that, like, again, you know, no more than sending it into an awards or sending it to, or going to a supermarket to get customers to taste it. But it's that thing of not being afraid to approach the media, not being afraid to, you know, like, you know, message me on Instagram. I know Caroline's here, Kate as well. We're all in the media, and just like kind of reaching out and saying, could I send you the product? Just wondering what you think. We're not going to go and like splash the front paper of the newspaper and be like, product is awful, avoid. You know what I mean? Like, that's not going to happen. At the worst, you know, we might come back to you in this no more than yourselves and be like, oh, I really like this, but maybe just thought this or the packaging or something. Like, that's from my perspective. I'm sure, ladies, would you agree with me as well? Like, see you nodding there. And I just think it is great to get that perspective as well, because sometimes as well, I do feel that from a media perspective, it could be that we see the potential in your story, and everyone's story has potential. But I mean, like, you know, we'll be like, oh yeah, but you know, you know, your information or something, like, I don't think you see that, like, giving you the confidence to feel that your story is incredible, you know, letting you know that, like, your product is amazing, I loved it, I'm happy to put it up on my social, or I'm happy to, maybe I want to interview you and give you an article in the paper about your story. But also sometimes it's just that connections, because then further down the line, you know, you might be doing up a, like, Wexford focus or something, and you'll have remembered that product that was sent in, and then you'll create that. So it's kind of like the long play as well. It's not just about that initial feedback, it's about me remembering all the products I've tasted throughout the year when it comes to awards or when it comes to different things, and also coming back to stories and remembering the people and the faces and the stories. So what I'm just trying to say is that media are there for you as well. Like, honestly, like, we need you as much as you need us, in terms of we want to give feedback, we want to help tell your stories when we can, and just to never be afraid to reach out. You know, there are PR companies, communication people who can be the mediators between that, but also never, with social media nowadays, like, never be afraid to reach out is what I would say. But I am going to...
Can I say something?
Yeah, sorry,
before?
yeah, of course.
There's one thing that I didn't get to say, and one that producers always forget, is open days.
Oh, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
one of the best ways to get, particularly locals, if you want to get more locals and visitors who come to the area, is pick a day, one day a year that you go, I'm opening up my doors and people coming in and seeing how you source the product, meet the people behind it, and teach them, particularly if it's a product that it's perceived to be expensive. When you get them in there and get them to see the passion and the amount of the steps that go into it, they will literally buy then and there, and they will become your champion. They will go around and they will at least tell their friends and family, and they'll spread the word, and that's really, really good. And people think, oh, you must have a visitor centre and you must have this, must be polished and everything. It does not. It needs to be safe, and it will be safe because you have your staff in there. People want to see the reality of running a production. If it's, making a sauce to making chocolate to brewing beer, whatever it is. And if you're not set up for it, but you do it, and then maybe 2 producers in your area, ask them to join, so make it a day of it. And people have done that, like Boyne Valley have done some amazing things, Sligo, the Burn, Wexford, we've done some great things, Waterford, the North, Taste Causeway. There's lots of people doing it, and most likely near in the area you have a network who are doing it already. And if they're not, reach out, reach out to people and make it happen.
And if you're having an open day, maybe invite a local journalist
Exactly,
along.
yeah.
Like I've been invited out to open days or on trips like that where there might be a few journalists, or it might just be for an open day with a mix of everybody. And then I remember those trips, obviously. I remember though, you're getting to see inside, you're getting to see behind the scenes. Like we want to know, like you said, what might seem mundane to a producer is just not to us. Like, it's so fascinating.
It is.
And no matter the product, like I love it. So I definitely agree with you. That's a really good way as well. Just check and see if anyone had any questions for us, for anyone on the panel. Yeah, okay, great.
Hi guys,
Hi.
Graham, I'm a coffee roaster, Causeway Coffee, also chair of Taste Causeway as well. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I've just questions on taste actually. So has the panel noticed any difference since COVID on people's taste of products? It seems to me that whether it's since COVID or whether it's the cost of living crisis or something like that, there seems to be a kind of divergence where you've got maybe the more mainstream products seem to have less taste. Certainly the feedback I get from customers is that maybe when they go into the sort of mainstream cafes, they can taste less coffee. Are you getting that from any of your kind of exposure in the market at all?
Anyone want to say, anyone heard anything like that, or any post-COVID taste differences or anything?
If people's tastes are getting a little bit more sophisticated is maybe kind of a big part of that. Like people they're not so into the chain coffee anymore because there's so many great independent sort of options, and you can get so much flavour in these products compared to maybe what 10 or so years ago was kind of the norm. And maybe as kind of everybody's getting older, there's more and more generations have been exposed to so much more flavour.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know people who have had their taste has been affected from COVID, and it's definitely been a learning curve to kind of come back to food, I guess. But also don't forget that once you've eaten food, like your taste buds, obviously, remember there's a taste memory there, and that won't go away. Like that will always kind of come back. But I haven't noticed a kind of, as you said, like a lack of flavour in products as such mainstream. But I would agree with that I think people are being far more considered because of cost of living and everything. If people want to buy coffee or buy whatever product, that they're not splashing out as much and just buying without thinking. That it's a very conscious. We're becoming conscious consumers because of lots of different reasons. Price is obviously driving a lot of people still. Value. I mean, value is becoming more and more, which we would have all here always said, it's about the value of something, not the price of it. But value is starting. People are really, really learning. I think from all of us and from producers and media and everyone who works to try and tell that story of the product. Like I think the general consumer is learning now to kind of think about where their food is from, where the producer is from, or that it is an Irish producer, to try and support local, to try and taste the product first, to ask questions. And then cost comes into that as well.
I think sustainability is another factor, like particularly for more bigger mainstream, bigger companies, they have to change their formulas now because procurement is a big thing, sourcing.
Yeah.
But for sustainability, they're looking at more cleaner, how they can, get better quality ingredients. but looking at how it's produced, in terms of energy, is there a better way of doing it? Removing that flavor from it. So there is I've noticed a little bit in products, particularly mass produced, that the flavor is not there. Particularly, people are removing trans fats and palm fats from things, because it's sustainability is not a trend. It is here, and it's going to affect everything.
But also, the Irish taste profile must have changed so much in the last 5 years even, but obviously it's changing all the time. But look at the diversity of products. Look at the flavors. We were just talking, myself and Kate, inside about, African products are now popping up everywhere, not just South African, but there was a Malay sauce in there. I've seen so many different things. And I think that's the kind of next wave of products that we're going to see from different countries. There's been a lot of other different countries that have already been prominent in the last few years. But that's going to change all of our taste profiles. Our kids are not going to have the same taste profiles that we had growing up. I grew up in Tipperary with a very traditional plate put in front of me. There was no spice on there unless it was black pepper. That was about as spicy as our food got, and I don't even think we put black pepper on stuff unless my sisters were around, and that was fancy, because they were making spaghetti bolognese or something. My dad was, the meat and 2 veg, and we loved it. But and people would say that palate is a bland palate, but it's not a bland palate. It's just our palates. Whereas now Irish people are mad for hot sauce. Hot sauce is on everything. I think we're all, our spice levels, our heat levels, we don't know.
But look, there's a whole category for hot sauces.
100%. Yeah, exactly.
Pre-COVID, we wouldn't have that. And then the other thing,
that's going to affect people's buying as well.
And then with COVID as well, because everyone had time out, so people were cooking at home, and they were really on the flavor, and they were buying from local markets or monthly deliveries from subscriptions and stuff. And people are now want that flavor, and they're willing to pay for it. Value is there. People have money and they're willing, but you have to convince them. Yeah. Particularly if you have a product that is, perceived that is the higher end, people will still buy it, but you have to get them to taste it and hear the story behind it.
Yeah.
And that goes back to that flavor and that taste. It is vital important for anyone to be picking a few times a year, going out and doing this, and it's local schools, something just to get out there, and because I know, budget is something that everyone looks at, and it does cost. But even going into your local food store, a place that's been supporting you since day one, have you gone in there and done a tasting and for the day, and then work with the staff there, because again, they're your champions.
And tasting your competitors, I presume, as well. And I say competitors, and it doesn't have to be your competitors, but other products in the same category as yours. If you haven't tasted those, you're at nothing either, because you need to know what's out there, and kind of not that you're trying to compare, but just so yourself. The way they always say chefs should eat in their own restaurants, but producers should eat their own categories. You have to have tasted all of the products that are available out there in your category to just see what you like, what you don't like, and where your product sits in that. I think that's really important.
And when you're traveling around, and if you're not traveling, if the neighbour's going off to, London, San Sebastian, anywhere, say to them, will you mind going into the supermarket and seeing what's happening, take a photograph.
Yeah.
So you can see, particularly if you're going to a place that the trends are setting there before they come into Ireland. So at least you can see it, and then you can get ready and get another product. It's vital important to really be looking at that.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Oh yeah, we have 2 here. Brilliant. Love them.
Hi.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, how do you balance up taste versus sort of trends? So we're developing a sugar-free version of our soft drink, and the tasting panels much prefer the flavour that's sweetened with aspartame as opposed to stevia, but obviously trends would tell me I should probably use stevia in the product. So how do you just when you brought up about the free-range eggs, how do you kind of balance the commercial decision on what the taste panel are saying versus what the trends would say?
Oh, anyone want to say that? I mean, my initial gut is to go with taste over the trend.
A trend is it will go. It's like the fad and fashion thing. It's if you think that's your panel are saying that's what it is, you have to listen and go, okay, maybe it's not sugar-free, maybe it's reduced, because you're designing a product that you want to have longevity. It's so you need to look ahead of that. I really like the whole, for me personally, and and professionally as well. Like the whole sugar-free thing is, it's going to go around in a cycle. Like if as long as it's really good sugar or natural sugar, maybe use a bit of honey or something in it, or natural, fruit. Is there a fruit that you can add in there that's a ripened fruit that will balance it out and give that a little bit of sweetness? Because that's what people want. Because it goes back to taste. People will go for the sugar-free, but if you're on a diet or something, they're not going to like it, essentially.
Ladies, what would you advise there? Any opinions on that? Which would you go for?
Taste. Definitely taste.
Go with the panel.
Yeah, go with the panel, go with the taste. But as well as that, is to plan your taste to the right time of the day for your product.
Yeah.
Like there's no point in me going into a supermarket and trying to give somebody egg mayonnaise for breakfast or coleslaw when all they want is an O'Neill's rasher or sausage or Cologne yogurt with some honey on it and some granola. Like you have to plan your tasting to go at the right time of the day. So they tell me to come in for 9 o'clock and set up. I'm like, no. I'll come in at 11:30, I'll set up, and then I'm getting the lunchtime trade. And the same then in the evenings, we do a lot of school openings or school open nights, or, the way they have the celebrity chefs.
Oh, yeah.
And you could have your cheese and wine, and like you're not going to do alcoholic drinks. Like we've some great drink producers in Wexford and Wexford Vodka and that, but they're not going to be serving early in the day. They have to go to the evening time slot, people coming home from work and that. So it's to know your product and know the time of day that your product is going to be eaten. But I would definitely, I'm taste the whole way, because like when you go into one of the restaurants and you get your Big Mac or your burger and then you get your diet drink, like it's not going to work like it.
Oh, yeah.
It's taste.
I do like Coca-Cola as an example here. Sorry to mention a brand and a mass brand and one that's like maybe not supposed to mention a plus. But like I love Coca-Cola Classic. I don't care how many sugar-free versions of that they're going to bring out, Coke Zero, Diet Coke, and they are not going to stop me from buying Coke Classic. Like I like the taste of Coke Classic. I know how much sugar is in it. I try and not drink it, but I love it. I just don't have it as much, but I am responsibly controlling my purchase of that. And I know that they know, I've been told how much sugar is in it. It's disgusting. But like, I know that, right? So like, I'm the responsible consumer here, and I know, but I don't mind how many versions of with whatever sweeteners they bring out or that are better for me. Like, it comes to taste for me with that product.
Yeah.
And it's the only example I can think of, which I know a really bad one, but like to give. So I think it does come down to that, like of people will buy it for taste over, like if they, I know they've brought out flavored Cokes and stuff, and that's probably trends that they've gone with. But I'm not going with that. Like I might try one, but I'm going to go back to the one that has the best taste for me. So I think your consumer will guide you.
Particularly with where sustainability, transparency. We're more educated. People now understand on the back of the label. So natural ingredients is always best.
Yeah.
And if it is a little bit more sugar, you tell people why. And if it's a natural or
transparency. Yeah.
Cane sugar or as I said, honey, or using an overripened fruit or something like that would be so much better than using unnatural sweeteners.
Yeah.
So
I do wonder though, when it comes to sugar-free products, people, are they even buying on taste? I think it depends who your taste panel are. Are you giving that to people who are likely to buy a diet drink? Because people don't necessarily buy the low-calorie version because it tastes better.
They're buying it because they think it's
They're
better
buying
for
it because
them.
it says it's better for them on the packaging. So I think that is also, like, just to make it more confusing, is also a bit of a consideration. You know, most people aren't buying a diet product because they think it tastes wonderful. They're buying it because they think they should be buying the lower calorie version, and they may be more likely to buy one with honey, stevia. I probably wouldn't be buying a diet product to start with, but I wouldn't be buying one with aspartame in it either. So it is particularly tricky with diet products, because usually I think it would be 100% taste, but when you're not buying a product for taste, it's harder to.
And I wonder, is your commercial decision, is there a massive difference in price between the two options? Like maybe that's something, I guess to obviously it's something to consider as well, but yeah.
But also to consider your shelf life then, because if you reduce the sugar is a preservative as well, so you need to test your product at the start, the middle and the end of both of them and see which suits your shelf life that you require, and the shelf life of the person when they've bought it as well. So sugar it's not the demon completely, because it's there to help prolong the shelf life of your product.
Thanks for your question. There was one more question here, I think, and then we'll...
2 seconds, I promise.
No, you're fine. No problem. It's the last one, so.
Hi, John Teagan, Teagan's Treats. We make jams, chutneys, cordials.
Lovely.
And I just wonder if I put my jar of raspberry jam at €4.50 on the shelf beside the own brand jam at 99 cents. Is there some way that I can influence taste?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Is there some way that I can educate people that it's so much better?
Yeah. That's the problem, isn't it? Is that you're up against that price difference, and like a lot of people, like we all know it, but like there's obviously a crisis, and even before there was a crisis, regardless of a crisis, people are drawn to budget. Like some people just will always go for the cheapest product. There are consumers out there that don't really care about taste as such, if you know what I mean. Like they're driven by being on a really strict budget, so you're never going to convince them that your jam is better. Like I think really for those small percentage of consumers, but thankfully there's that's a minority, you know. And I think that what I would try and say is, do you do a lot of in supermarket tastings or things like that? Oh yeah. Gotcha.
But it's your story behind how you made that pot of jam.
exactly.
It's your small pot. It's who your supplier of the fruit is, and bring the story together. And if you're in a market, that's the best place. You bring that pot and you show the pot. That's the pot I made that jam in, and make your story that it's premium quality fruit that's gone into it. It's the best of everything. You've put your heart and soul into it. It's not a mass-produced product, and you just need to realise where you are. You're not in the value market for a budget for a family that only has €50 to spend for the week on groceries. You're in the next one who wants a health benefit. They want the taste. They want the texture.
You want to support a family with,
family
with your own
business.
story about your own product, you know. I
So
mean, I'm sure is that someone's recipe? Is there, like, I'm sure you have it. Yeah, like as in, oh yeah, but I mean, what I mean is there's your story is going to sell me your products. Like I would pick your product over the 99 cent because I'm always looking for, I'm your market, so I'm going to pick that. So what I'm saying is.
What I'm really afraid of is of joining the race to the bottom.
Oh
So-
yeah.
No.
So I would say should you be on that shelf there beside it? Maybe a limited edition if you're going into one of the multiples, or looking at where they do kind of the local area. Particularly a jam category and it's very competitive, particularly on price. And I would say look at your branding and your story in your jar. If you are going on the shelf, make sure maybe a square jar because it's valuable instead of a round one, and maybe a smaller jar instead of a bigger jar. People will try something.
Yeah.
If it's a smaller one, particularly on price. But sometimes I would say to people, is it really where you need to be? Because you'll never compete at the 99 cent. So look at,
That's
the
not your audience,
independents. They are amazing at putting, giving you shelf space. Look, even petrol stations, like there's some local petrol stations
Yes.
around Ireland.
Yeah.
As much I don't, eat, but I would shop in the petrol station because sometimes I'm running around and I have like a recipe to do at home, and I'm in and filling up with petrol or get the car cleaner or doing something, and I'm like, I need it, and I see it there. I'm like, yes, I got it. And particularly a product like that is something you don't buy as much, so you might run out of it and forget about it. But they're places because it's one of an essential item.
Yeah, and local shops, like as
local.
in whether it's a local
Craft butchers, there's loads.
smaller stores, the Spars, the Centras, those kind of ones, or whichever your local stores are, like, Yeah, I
But
think
the
so.
main thing with your stores is go in and form a relationship.
Yeah.
No matter who the store is or who the retailer is, there's great managers and they want their stores to perform. So when they go back to give their results, that they have met the makers and they will pull it forward. They'll mind your product, they'll mind you coming in, and just to build and forge relationships in every store you go into, not just the one that is selling 30 units a week. If they're only selling one or two, they're still as important. So we would find that our drivers and our telesales team are the main people as ambassadors every day. They're going into the back doors to the storemen, in to get checked in onto the shelf space. Shelf spaces are crazy coming up to Christmas. You're squeezed down, you're expanded out. It's like a Corsantina. You could go in one day and I'm competing against the pates, the cheese boards and all that. So my little salad section goes down like this. And then 3 days before Christmas, they're like, it's open again, Trudy. And like I'm trying to work out of that little section for 8 salads. So we have to make a decision then, what would we put in less of, but we'll put in our key lines, and then as soon as it opens out again, when all the cheese boards are sold and all the pates. So I wouldn't know that if I wasn't going in and speaking to the stores that is going to be opened up at 3 o'clock on the day before Christmas Eve. And then we know to spread it out again, because our product is the bread, the Trudy's salad, the fresh cream and the ice cream. That's what you're doing the day before Christmas Eve. So it's fine for me to then put in a good volume there, but meet the person that's taking in your product, minding your product in the shop, and from then you'll have no problems.
One of the best things that came out of COVID was, I suppose, that want to support local and, you know, what's within a certain radius, you know, in a local shop. And I think that has carried on, that message has carried on. And people in your, even if it's a big radius, like even if it is the Highlands of Ireland, you know, people will want to support an Irish-made product quicker than you know, a 99-cent one that has no story to it, no provenance, but also just, you know, not an attachment to it. Like, we're connected to food, and it's creating those connections with the consumer. And that is through your story, your faces, again, catching, packaging, and social media. I don't know if you're here for that earlier, but I know. The one thing I will say about social media, and this isn't that talk, is one post a week consistently, just whatever it is, on one platform, one day a week, do one post and do that, and it'll love you, and that's all you need to do. And don't be afraid to put your face in the camera. Hold the camera up to him and be like, tell me what you're doing there. Tell me what you're doing there. Tell everyone what you're doing. Do this, whatever. That's all you have to do.
That's like taste. Like, one of the producers
taste,
that I love is Aisling from Velvet Cloud. Every morning I wake up, she has a recipe with a product, and like that taste, my mouth is salivating just thinking of it. So whatever your product you're doing and taste, you know.
Or she's walking out the fields or walking down the lane.
But that is
telling you what
taste
she's
is
gonna
visual.
do that day.
You know, people are, and it's very important. And again, it's just, if it's one thing, you just do that, and that's
like, make sure you know, like, what do your preserves go well with. Like, suggest them. What do you love them with? Show them eating what you love them with. Like, that's what people want to see, exactly, and that connects you. Definitely. We've run completely over. I'm so sorry. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Yeah, and thank you to my panelists, to Trudy, to Laura, and to Anthony. Make sure and follow the guys on social media. And that's it. Thank you. Thanks to Viv, who hosted Bloss all day here at Backyard at Bloss. Well done, Vivian.